fog-draped Blackwood convenience like a shroud woven from the threads of some ancient nightmare, its tendrils curling around my battered Honda as I stepped into the frigid embrace of a November night at 11 p.m. The car's engine ticked faintly, a faltering heartbeat against the oppressive silence, as if it sensed the malevolence lurking beyond the mist. At 18, I was blind to the omens stitched into the air, my spine prickling with a chill that sank deeper than the damp cold, a shiver that whispered of a presence watching from the shadows. My mind danced with visions of dollar signs. $45 an hour to stock shelves and man a register, a fortune so intoxicating it would have lured me into a haunted house without a second thought, my youthful arrogance shielding me from the abyss that yawned at my feet. The store squatted at the edge of Route 49, a festering wound on the desolate highway, its once white paint yellowed to the hue of decayed teeth, peeling in jagged strips that exposed the rotting wood beneath, a testament to decades of neglect. The neon sign flickered epileptically, its half-illuminated letters, B-A-K-O-N-E, casting a sickly glow against the inky darkness, a cryptic beacon that seemed to pulse with a life of its own. As I drew closer, the automatic doors wheezed open with a groan that reverberated like the death rattle of a dying beast, releasing a stale wave of coffee grounds, cigarette ash, and a rancid undertone that assaulted my senses with the force of a physical blow, clinging to my clothes and hair like a second skin. The interior unfolded before me as a cathedral of decay, linoleum floors sticky with an unidentifiable residue that adhered to my sneakers with every reluctant step, its surface marred by dark, irregular stains that hinted at past atrocities. A distant drip pulsed from the back room, a metronome of neglect that echoed through the hollow aisles, each drop a reminder of the building's slow unraveling. The fluorescent lights buzzed with an uneven, discordant hum, their sickly green glow transforming the space into a morgue where even the freshest produce appeared pallid and lifeless, their skins sagging as if drained of vitality by some unseen force. The air carried a palpable thickness, a weight that pressed against my chest and constricted my breath, and I should have turned back then, should have heeded the primal dread that gnawed at my gut like a ravenous beast. But ambition, that siren song of youth, drowned out the warnings, urging me forward into the maw of the unknown with the reckless confidence of the untested. My dreams of financial escape blinding me to the peril ahead. A gravelly voice shattered my reverie, rough as sandpaper scraped against stone, its timbre laced with the weariness of countless nights spent in this forsaken place. "You the new kid?" I pivoted to face the source, finding my training partner, a man I'd come to call the veteran, carved from the same weathered timber as the store's sagging shelves, his form a monument to endurance etched in shadow. In his 40s, his graying hair clung to his scalp in greasy, matted strands, and his bloodshot eyes, veined with exhaustion and something darker, perhaps despair or a resigned terror, bore the weight of years spent in this purgatory, their depths reflecting a horror I could not yet comprehend. He loomed behind the counter, a cigarette dangling from his lips with insolent defiance, its ember glowing a faint orange against the backdrop of no smoking signs plastered like desperate prayers across the walls, their faded ink a testament to ignored warnings. "Yeah, don't care what your name is." He cut me off, drawing a long, deliberate drag and exhaling a plume of smoke toward the ceiling, where it hung like a ghostly shroud, curling in slow, deliberate patterns as if guided by an unseen hand. "Names don't matter on the night shift. You'll be gone in a week anyway." His pessimism rolled off me like water off a duck's back. I was young, invincible, my pockets aching for the cash that promised to outstrip my friend's fast food earnings in a single shift, a fortune that fueled my dreams of escape from a small-town life. "Actually, I plan on sticking around," I countered, a cocky grin spreading across my face, my voice brimming with the arrogance of youth. "This pays insane for babysitting an empty store." His laugh rasped like gravel churned in a blender, a sound devoid of mirth, its harshness scraping against my nerves. "Empty store, right?" He reached under the counter with a slow, deliberate motion, sliding a tattered handbook toward me, its duct-taped cover a patchwork of survival, the edges frayed as if clawed by desperate hands, the pages yellowed with age and stained with what might have been coffee or blood. "Read this. Follow every rule. Don't ask questions." I opened it, the pages crackling like dry leaves under a winter wind, each rule more bizarre than the last. Never acknowledge the 3 a.m. customer. Ignore knocks from the freezer after midnight. Keep the radio on static between 12 and 4 a.m. Don't look directly at the fog for more than 30 seconds. The words seemed to writhe on the paper, a litany of madness that defied logic, their ink bleeding into the margins as if the text itself were alive, shifting with each reading, a living document that bore the scars of those who'd come before. This is a joke, right? I held it up, my grin widening, imagining a corporate prank to haze the new guy, a rite of passage to test my mettle. Some team-building scare tactic? The veteran's bloodshot eyes fixed on mine, his perpetual scowl deepening into an expression that bordered on pity, a crack in his hardened facade that revealed a glimpse of the man beneath the mask. "Kid, I've been working nights for 3 years," he said, his voice low and gravelly, each word weighted with the burden of experience. "You think I'd still be here if it was a joke?" The weight of his words struck me, my grin faltering as a chill unrelated to the fog seeped into my bones. A cold that seemed to emanate from the handbook itself, its pages whispering secrets I wasn't yet ready to hear. I forced the smile back, clinging to my bravado. "Come on, man. Don't acknowledge the 3 a.m. customer? What's that even supposed to mean?" "It means exactly what it says," he growled, stubbing his cigarette into the counter with a hiss, adding another black scar to the dozens already etched there. A map of countless nights marked by defiance. "At 3 o'clock, someone's gonna walk up to that door. Don't look at them, don't wave, don't even think about helping. Keep your eyes on whatever you're doing and wait for them to leave." My next question withered on my tongue as my gaze fell on a name badge lying on the counter, its plastic surface gouged and scratched as if someone had clawed at it in a frenzy. The name barely legible beneath the damage, a ghost of identity erased by some unseen force. "What happened to Mike?" I asked, my voice quieter now, a thread of unease weaving through my words. His hand trembled as he lit another cigarette, the flame dancing in his unsteady grip, the smoke curling upward in frail tendrils that seemed to carry his unspoken fears. Mike didn't follow the rules. The night unfurled with agonizing slowness, each minute stretching into an eternity, the clock's hands moving as if mired in molasses, its red digits glowing like the eyes of a predator in the dim light. I restocked the candy aisle, the wrappers damp and clinging to my fingers despite the arid air, their crinkling a mockery of normalcy that echoed in the hollow space, each sound amplified by the stillness. I counted the register 3 times, the coins clinking with a hollow resonance, each tally a futile attempt to anchor myself in a reality that felt increasingly unstable, the metal cold against my skin. I scrubbed the coffee machine until it gleamed, the steam rising like a fleeting prayer, its warmth a brief respite from the cold that seeped through the walls, a chill that seemed to emanate from the very foundation, its source a mystery buried deep within the earth. The veteran chain-smoked in silence, his eyes flicking to the security monitors with a nervous intensity, their screens displaying only the swirling fog and an empty parking lot, a void that seemed to pulse with intent, its gray tendrils probing the edges of the frame like searching fingers. At 2 a.m., the radio crackled to life with static, a sound mandated by the handbook, its white noise a constant drone that filled the store with an eerie hum, a soundscape that seemed to vibrate through my bones. But beneath the static, I detected something else. Whispers, faint and fragmented, voices speaking in a tongue that made my teeth ache and my skull throb, as if the words were carved into my mind with a blunt instrument, their meaning lost to time yet their intent unmistakably malevolent, a language that predated humanity itself. "Normal," the veteran muttered, not lifting his gaze from a dog-eared magazine, its pages yellowed and brittle, its contents a relic of a forgotten era. His tone dismissive yet tinged with a resignation that suggested he'd heard it all before, a man numbed by repetition. A candy bar tumbled off the shelf behind me, hitting the floor with a soft thud that jolted me from my reverie, the sound sharp in the stillness. As I turned to retrieve it, the fog outside had thickened, pressing against the windows like damp, groping hands, its surface rippling with a rhythm that suggested life, the parking lot swallowed by a gray wall that seemed to breathe with its own malevolent intent, its pulses syncing with the beating of my heart. That's when I heard it. A soft knock from the direction of the freezer, deliberate and distinct. A sound that cut through the static like a blade, its echo lingering in the air. "Did you hear that?" I asked, my voice betraying a tremor that I couldn't suppress, my heart quickening in my chest, a drumbeat against the silence. The veteran shook his head, his expression hardening into a mask of grim determination, his eyes narrowing as if bracing for what was to come. Rule 3. Ignore knocks from the freezer. Another knock followed, slower this time, almost polite, as if something were asking permission to emerge. Its cadence a mockery of courtesy that sent a shiver down my spine, a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature. What if someone's trapped in there? I pressed, my curiosity warring with the growing dread that coiled in my stomach, a knot that tightened with each passing second. What if, "Follow the damn rules," he snapped, his voice cracking like a whip, the sudden ferocity startling me, his eyes blazing with a fury born of experience, a rage that masked a deeper fear. The knocking ceased, but the silence that descended was heavier, a pregnant void that pressed against my ears, a stillness so profound it seemed to amplify the pounding of my heart, each beat a countdown to the unknown. I found myself staring at the freezer door, its frosted surface a portal to the unknown, its edges rimed with ice that glistened under the flickering lights, waiting for it to happen again, my breath catching as I imagined what might lie beyond. The veteran's hand clamped onto my shoulder, his fingers digging in with a bruising force that grounded me in the moment, a lifeline in the growing darkness. "Don't," he warned, his breath hot and ragged, his voice a low growl laced with urgency, a plea that carried the weight of survival. "Don't even think about it." At 3 a.m. sharp, a shadow moved in the fog, a silhouette barely discernible through the thick gray soup that had consumed the parking lot, its form a dark stain against the luminescent haze, a figure that seemed to emerge from the mist itself. I'd been organizing the magazine rack, my hands trembling with the effort to focus on the mundane task, the glossy pages sticking to my damp fingers, when the motion in my peripheral vision drew my gaze like a magnet, an irresistible pull I couldn't resist. The figure was tall and thin, swaying back and forth with a rhythm too unnatural to be human, its proportions distorted, elongated in a way that defied anatomy, its limbs bending at angles that suggested no earthly skeleton, a mockery of life itself. My hand rose instinctively, a reflex honed by years of customer service, a wave that felt automatic, ingrained, a gesture that promised help to any who sought it. But the veteran's hand slammed down on my wrist with a force that sent a jolt of pain up my arm, his grip ironclad, unyielding. "Don't," he whispered, his breath hot against my ear, his voice a desperate plea masked as a command, a warning that carried the weight of life and death. "Don't look directly at it. Don't acknowledge it. Just keep doing what you're doing." But I couldn't help myself. The shadow lingered at the edge of visibility, and I felt its gaze, a weight that pinned me in place, watching us through the glass with an intensity that made my skin crawl, a stare that seemed to peel back the layers of my soul. It didn't move like a person. Its motions were a grotesque parody, almost right but fundamentally wrong, a puppet mastering the strings imperfectly, its jerky gait a mockery of life, its form shifting as if testing the boundaries of perception. After what felt like hours but was likely minutes, it faded back into the fog, leaving a void where its presence had been, a silence that rang with the echo of its departure, a hollow that seemed to draw the air from my lungs. "What the hell was that?" I gasped, my heart pounding against my ribcage, my breath coming in short, ragged bursts, my voice a whisper against the hum of the lights. "The 3 a.m. customer," he said, releasing my wrist and stepping back, his face pale under the fluorescent light, the green glow casting deep shadows across his features, his expression a mask of relief tinged with dread. "And you almost got us both killed." The rest of the shift passed in tense silence, every shadow in the fog making me jump, a phantom movement that sent my pulse racing, every creak of the building's old bones, a groan of settling timber, a sigh of rusted pipes, setting my nerves on edge, the air thick with the anticipation of the next encounter, a tension that coiled tighter with each passing minute. When 6 a.m. finally arrived and the fog began to thin with the approaching dawn, the first pale threads of light piercing the gray, I'd never been happier to see sunlight in my life, its warmth a lifeline that pulled me back from the brink, a beacon of hope in the darkness. As I gathered my things and prepared to leave, the veteran pulled the handbook from under the counter, flipping to a page near the back with a reverence that suggested sacred text, his fingers tracing the worn edges. "Emergency procedures," he said, pointing to a section I hadn't noticed before. The ink faded, but the words stark, a warning etched in desperation. "Manager's office has a guide. Only open it if the static lasts longer than 3 minutes." "Why are you telling me this?" I asked, my voice unsteady, a tremor of fear threading through my words, my confidence shaken by the night's revelations. He looked at me for a long moment, and I saw something new in his eyes, fear mingled with a resigned acceptance, like a man who'd already surrendered to his fate. His gaze holding mine with a weight that spoke of shared doom. "Because you'll be back tomorrow night. They always come back." As I walked to my car, the faint hum of static from the radio inside the store followed me, a whisper in the back of my mind that promised this was only the beginning, its rhythm syncing with the pounding of my pulse, a reminder of the entity that lurked beyond the glass. The fog hadn't just hidden the parking lot. It had been watching, waiting, learning, its tendrils brushing against my consciousness, and tomorrow night, it would be hungry. I thought the rules were a joke, a childish game to test my nerve, but then the freezer answered back, its knock a summons I could not ignore, a call that echoed in the silence of my drive home. 24 hours had crawled by since my first shift at Blackwood Convenience, each moment a battleground where I constructed an elaborate fortress of denial to shield myself from the night's terrors, its walls built from the fragile bricks of rationalization, each one mortared with the hope of a logical explanation. Sleep had come fitfully, a restless dance interrupted by dreams that clawed at my sanity. Visions of static-filled radios hissing with unseen voices, their tones a cacophony of despair, shadows that moved with a wrongness that lingered in my waking thoughts, their forms twisting in the fog that pressed against my bedroom window, its whispers seeping into my room like a malevolent intruder, a presence that refused to be banished. But by the time I'd showered, the hot water a fleeting comfort against the chill that lingered in my bones, gulped down a bitter coffee that scalded my tongue and left a lingering taste of ash, and checked my bank account to see that beautiful $45 already pending. A digital promise of freedom, a lifeline to a better life. I'd convinced myself it was all first-night jitters, amplified by an overactive imagination fueled by too many late-night horror movies, a mind prone to weaving nightmares from the mundane. The human brain, I reasoned during the drive back, its hum a counterpoint to the fog's silence, was a master at finding patterns in chaos, conjuring monsters from the creaks of an old building and turning ordinary mist into a supernatural specter, a trick of perception I was determined to unravel. Gas leaks could cause hallucinations, the groan of settling timber could mimic knocks. There was a logical explanation for everything, a thread of science to guide me through the darkness, and I was resolute in my mission to prove it tonight, my resolve a shield against the unknown, a bulwark against the fear that gnawed at the edges of my mind. The fog was thicker than before, a suffocating blanket that seemed to have weight as it pressed against my Honda's windshield, its surface rippling with a life of its own, my headlights piercing only 5 feet ahead, transforming the familiar stretch of Route 49 into an alien landscape where landmarks dissolved into a gray void, the road a path into oblivion. The tires crunched on gravel hidden beneath the mist, each sound amplified in the stillness, a solitary note in a symphony of silence, and the wipers struggled against the dampness that coated the glass, their rhythmic sweep a futile battle against the encroaching gray. When Blackwood Convenience finally materialized from the wall of mist, the building looked smaller, more fragile, its grimy white walls sagging as if weary of bearing the weight of its secrets, the paint peeling in long, jagged strips that revealed the rotting wood beneath, a canvas of decay painted by time. The fluorescent lights inside were dimmer, their sickly green glow a weak pulse against the darkness that pressed against every window, the glass streaked with condensation that dripped like tears, each droplet a silent plea for release. The automatic doors wheezed open with a labored groan, the sound a death rattle that echoed through the empty lot, releasing a wave of stale air that carried new undertones tonight. Something sour and organic, like fruit left to rot in a warm room. The stench hitting the back of my throat and making me gag. A visceral assault that clung to my senses as I stepped inside. A prelude to the horrors within. The veteran, whom I now knew as Rick, was already stationed behind the counter. But the man I found there bore little resemblance to the cynical clerk I'd met the night before. Where yesterday he'd looked tired and bitter, his features etched with the lines of a hard life. Tonight he appeared haggard to the point of collapse, dark circles shadowing his bloodshot eyes, making them appear sunken into his skull like hollowed sockets. The whites veined with red as if bled dry by sleepless nights, a map of torment etched in flesh. His hands shook as he raised another cigarette to his lips, the fourth or fifth, judging by the overflowing ashtray beside the register, its contents a graveyard of butts, each one a marker of a night survived, and the smoke curled upward in frail tendrils that seemed to carry his exhaustion into the air, a visible manifestation of his burden. "You came back," he said without looking up from his magazine. His voice rougher than before, raspy and strained, as if the night had scraped his throat raw with its claws, the words emerging like a confession wrung from a condemned man. The pages were yellowed and brittle, their edges crumbling like ancient parchment, and I caught a glimpse of the date, 1987, stamped in faded ink, a relic from a time before this place had claimed its first victim, a silent witness to the store's dark history. "Most don't make it past night one. Told you I would," I replied, grabbing my name tag from under the counter and pinning it to my uniform with fingers that trembled despite my effort to project confidence. The plastic cool against my skin, a symbol of my initiation into this nightmare. $45 an hour doesn't grow on trees, and I've got college applications to pay for. Rick's laugh was like gravel in a cement mixer, a sound that grated against my nerves, its harshness a stark contrast to the stillness around us, a bitter acknowledgement of my naivety. "Money, right? That's what Tommy said, 19 years old, working nights to save up for an engagement ring. Had it all planned out, proposal at Christmas, wedding in the spring." The name hit me like a physical blow, a sudden weight that made my chest tighten, my breath catching as the implications sank in. A shadow cast over my own dreams. Tommy? The kid who worked here before me. His eyes finally met mine, and what I saw there made my blood turn cold. The bloodshot veins were worse tonight, spreading across the whites like cracks in old porcelain. But worse was the guilt swimming in their depths, a profound fear that aged him beyond his years, his gaze a mirror to the terror that lurked within these walls. "Sweet boy, really?" he continued, his voice softening with memory, a rare tenderness breaking through his cynicism, a glimpse of the man he might have been before this place claimed him. Always talking about his girl, Sarah, showing me pictures on his phone, her smile, her eyes, the way she laughed in every shot. "What happened to him?" I asked, dreading the answer, my voice a whisper against the hum of the lights, a question that hung heavy in the air. "Same thing that happens to all of them who don't follow the rules," he said, stubbing out his cigarette with unnecessary violence, the butt crushed into the counter with a hiss, a punctuation to his words. "They get curious. They start thinking they're smarter than the system." The store felt different tonight, charged with an energy that made my skin crawl, as if the very walls were alive and listening, their silence a prelude to judgment, a courtroom where my fate would be decided. The air was noticeably colder despite the heating system humming in the background, a low drone that seemed to vibrate through my bones, our breath visible in small puffs that hung in the air like ghosts, their forms dissipating slowly as if reluctant to leave, a spectral audience to our plight. The fluorescent lights flickered more frequently, casting everything in strobing shadows that seemed to move independently, detaching from the objects that cast them. Shelves that shifted, cans that rolled without cause, creating a dance of darkness that played at the edges of my vision, a choreography of the unseen.